Hey, we're live. Hey, what's up, America? Welcome to Get to Know the CEO, the show where we attempt to humanize corporate America through the magic and power of stupid questions. It's hosted by America's sweetheart, Eric Ryan. I'm America's sweetheart, Eric Ryan. Today's guest is Garren Parkins. He is the founder and CEO of Deskrig. That's you. And Deskrig, according to my LinkedIn research, let me know if this is right. It helps professionals establish and maintain credibility by optimizing their digital presence using established integrated hardware and software solutions. That sound good?
I think that sounds right.
Yeah, I hope so, because I ripped it off your website. Do you want to expound on that at all? Do you want to just get right into the 5 questions?
Yeah, no, I mean that's what Deskrig does. We help business professionals leverage existing technologies to improve their virtual presence, and make sure you're showing up and looking your best and feeling your best. Because if you're in person, right, like you're gonna show up, and most people are gonna show up looking good, taking a shower. I hope, maybe.
I don't know. Post COVID, I feel like showers took a hit, but
yeah. I went out the door. But when you're on a video, people have an expectation of the quality of video, and they're going to tie that to your reputation, their perception of you. So best show up, looking your best, feeling your best, and dressed to impress.
And there's a rumor that people like doing business with those that they know, like, and trust. And what better way to know, like, and trust you than if you're on goddamn video talking about your stuff in person, instead of hiring some marketing company going to ChatGPT to write a blog nobody reads. Show up on video. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad we agree. All right, the 5 questions of doom. I think these questions tell a lot about something. I think it helps people know, like, and trust them, which is why I ask them. Are you ready for question number 1?
Let's do it.
All right, question number 1. Your 3 favorite bands.
3 favorite bands.
Yes. This is Incubus. And that is a band that is one of your 3 favorite. Tell me about why you love Incubus.
I think it ties me back to my high school days, honestly. Like that's one of the like, when I hear any Incubus song, not only are they incredible lyricists, incredible musicians, and it's like I feel like a lot of artists, you can listen to a song or two off of an album, but I feel like with Incubus, you can start the album and just let it play, and it tells like a story. And I think that it just really is one of those. They're one of those bands that just take me back in time, and tie me back to the emotions that I felt as a young man, right? Like, so that's really why I chose Incubus, and I had to think about that because I have a eclectic music taste, and I go through.
Yeah, you do.
And I go through phases. Like I'll go through a phase where I'll be into country. I'll go through a phase where I'll be into like pop. I'll be in a phase where I'm into like old soul music or like R&B or hip hop or rap, like a hardcore rap, as you'll hear in a second. And so like I think that it's just like there are these phases in life you go through. Incubus ties me back to my early manhood, as it were.
So Incubus, how old are you?
I am 37. I'm about to be 38.
Okay, so I'm 43, and I think so. Incubus, right? I think in my head, if you held a gun to it last night, you said name an Incubus song, I would have gone "Wish You Were Here," and then I couldn't have. But I did some research. I know "Drive," "Dig," "Pardon Me," "Megalomania," "Warning." Like all this shit. I just wouldn't have gone. That's Incubus, because I think what happened was, I know the show's not about me, but I think what happened was I was very into 80s hair metal very early on. Then I was very into grunge. And then within grunge came Snoop and Dre, like the Chronic and Doggy Style dropped around that. So like music was all these things. By the time I got to college, where we had sort of this rock, this alt rock, alt metal thing, I liked it, but I didn't fall in love with it. So I think like I mushed them in with Linkin Park and Three Doors Down and Chevelle and 311 and Stained. And that first Nickelback song that everybody pretends they didn't like it. It was fucking great. Stop it. So, you know what I mean? To me, it was like they just got smushed into that thing, which was the soundtrack of college, but it didn't speak to my soul necessarily.
Right. Yeah, right. No, I can see how you would. I can see how you would have mixed them in with all those other bands, but I don't feel like they're the same. Like if you went through and listened to the best of each one of those bands, I feel like Incubus has they have a similar sound, but I think that it's still different. And I will implore you to go listen to Aqueous Transmission.
Okay. Taking
Um,
notes.
I think it's like, if I remember correctly, it's a full instrumental.
Hmm.
And it's
Well,
like 8 minutes long. It's at the end of Morning View, the album.
okay.
And it's one of those songs that, like, I remember specifically being up super late at night with my high school buddies, and like almost like that drive home from a party at 3 in the morning when
Oh,
we were
it feels
probably
good, doesn't it? Isn't set and setting so important with music and drugs? Like
it
it is.
is.
Oh my
It
God.
is.
I know.
It is. Oh my
It's how
gosh.
you
And
do it.
when I hear that song, it's almost like I'm transported back to driving my old Honda Passport that was like beat up from us driving it through fields and hitting twigs and trees, and like the small fender benders I got in, and everybody's quiet in the car because we're all exhausted and thinking about like the drama that unfolded and whatever particular high school drama filled party you were in, and heartbreak, and that instrumental, just it was long, and it just allowed you to think on that drive home. And I will employ you to listen to that one specifically. And it's got like an Asian like influence to it, like an, or like if that makes sense, like it's like down 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 down,
Yeah.
like it's
Well,
kind of
kind of.
got that
So
string.
I think one of the best compliments I can give to Incubus is, one of the things I do is I always go to Reddit and I go, why do people hate whatever band people said, like, pull this out? No one, Incubus came out unscathed. Nobody,
Yeah.
Incubus, everybody was very complimentary of them. They did say that their influences get a little weird towards the end of their, the later albums. But I had a moment of crisis last night because I was looking for, like, a lot of bands have YouTube video bios that somebody's done. Incubus didn't necessarily have one, but they did appear on an episode of MTV Diaries, which I kind of sort of remember that show. Not really though. So it was like a day in the life of, in the intro package has like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and Chris Rock for some reason. But so it was a
Throwback.
life of Incubus, and I watched it, and they looked it looked like kids I went to college with, and they were doing dumb shit. And then I watched this was out in 1999 or 2000, 2001, something like that. Then I watched their Jimmy Kimmel appearance from 3 months ago, and I freaked the fuck out because they look so goddamn old. Then it occurred to me that I look like that. I'm very sad. I mean, 25 years. Oh shit.
I know. I mean, you're probably just like me. Like, you're still mentally, in a sense, like that version of you from
Yeah.
like 1999, 2000, 2001, and like you're like,
Yeah.
how has this happened
And then
to
when you
me?
look at a group of kids that looks exactly like how you view your friends and how you looked at the time, the fashion, the music, what, like, the way they were acting, like that felt like those years. And then to immediately go to that Jimmy Kimmel appearance where they're balding, they're old, oh my God.
Oh,
It hurt.
painful. Move
Oh.
on. Next artist. Let's God. Oh.
Can I say that another two Garrens in the same room?
Oh, that's my boy.
Time?
That is
Yeah.
my boy. That is GB3. He is, if you don't follow Garren, highly recommend. He creates amazing content. I want to throw shout out.
Great hair too.
Big shout
Okay.
out.
Number two, of course, everybody goes from Incubus to Lil Wayne, right? That's a classic pairing. We talked about Lil Wayne a little bit off air, but I do want to say his shit kind of missed me, I think. But I'm glad that you brought him up because I did a little Lil Wayne deep dive, and I like it. I'm not just saying that because you're here. I think he has a lot of good shit. And as we talked about, so off the air, we played a 5-minute song. You knew every lyric. He is prolific. He writes a lot. It's funny. I've never laughed at songs more than I did at Lil Wayne, and I don't know if it's purposeful, but the guy's goddamn hilarious.
Yeah. No, his lyrical abilities, I feel like, in rap, I still to this day, he has a song called Greatest Rapper Alive. And I think that absolutely, if you asked every kind of major artist that's popular now, one of like their 3 biggest influences, not 5, 3.
Yeah.
I think every one of them is going to have Lil Wayne in that list, and I don't see how that wouldn't happen. He influenced and grew and evolved and changed the rap game like no other rapper. I think that he really was the father, in a sense, of modern rap. Even we're in this mumble rap phase and there's these crossovers, yes, but I think that he really kind of in a way brought rap really mainstream. Not to say like Snoop and Dre, Tupac, Biggie, like yes, but he was like an evolved version of what they did for the rap game. And to your point before the show started, right? He went through a rock phase,
Yeah.
which wasn't, I wouldn't say his best moment necessarily, but what I like about it is that he wasn't afraid to like step outside of his genre, in a sense, and like bring his artistic talents to at least attempt a crossover appeal. I think that was cool. I respect that.
Yeah, and the other thing I came across too is that sort of this idea that he's large and contains multitudes because his face looks like a detention room desk. Like, why would you would ever do this? I have no idea. But I watched an interview with him, and he talked about his suicide attempt when he was 12. And I know, like, this is such a dumb thing to say, but he's very thoughtful and articulate about his suicide attempt and contemplative about the whole thing. His suicide attempt, by the way, he's fucking 12 years old. So and then, the actions of the cops who came to the house and how a lot of them stepped over his bleeding body to go find, weapons and drugs. And only one cop picked him up and was concerned about his well-being. It's a very touching thing. The other thing I found out, he's a very gifted student. And he had this great quote about it. He's like, I don't know how school is that hard. He said, they're teaching you stuff and the answers they want are in the book they give you. Just look those up. I was like, that's a very interesting point, Lil Wayne. And you can tell by his lyrics that he's obviously gifted on a level that's, you said a lot of his stuff is freestyle. If that's the truth, the man is a goddamn genius because the shit that he comes up with is hilarious and good. Like that's a hard combination.
It is. And I think that is another thing that comes through really clearly in his work is that while he does have these like kind of street influences in his life and lived experiences to kind of stand on, that kind of, ground him to the community at large, like he's obviously an outlier when it comes to intelligence. Like, and I don't mean just, average everyday person. I think he likely is like pretty a genius.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably no way he's not. Even to cross genres is a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to do well. And then I think he did it really, really well. So, all right. Well, thanks for opening up my eyes to Lil Wayne. I don't know, man. I think just, I think the years of us, like you're what, 37, you said I'm 40. I think those years like sometimes mumble up people's musical influences,
Right. 100%. I'm going to be sending you a lot of Lil Wayne tracks for you to listen to that you're going to be like, holy shit. This one's better than the last one. So, yeah.
All right, well, so it's keeping on the rap train, but very different, sort of on opposite spectrums, I would suggest. Interesting, given your age, that you're into A Tribe Called Quest, because most of their shit was 80s, and that was like this is a little retro for you, it would seem.
It is, but it's like one of those bands that like when I'm running, as an example, right? I like the vibe. If that makes sense. Like it's not as like lyrical as Lil Wayne or like Hood or whatever you would call that. It's like, it's much more of like this kind of like bop and vibe. Like,
it's a
Bonita
little
Applebum. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like lighthearted, funky kind of, it's very 80s rap, which is one of those genres that I don't particularly enjoy, but I wish I did. So I had a guest on last week and her number one band, Count Basie. And I was like, man, I wish I was into jazz. That would make me cooler. I wish I was into 80s rap because I like the Afrocentricity of it all. Like they were native tongues with De La Soul and Queen Latifah. I wish I was into that because that seems like a cool thing to be into. I just like that next generation. Like I was the Tupac and then DMX. And well, prior to that, I guess Snoop and Dre. Like that really spoke to me. I just wish I was into it because it seems like a cool thing to be into.
Yeah, it is. No, I would highly implore you to spend a little bit of time in their discography and hear what they've got. And they had a recent album that was really good that came out as well.
Is that like, post Fife Dog's death?
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Fife. I did watch Michael Rappaport's documentary. It's Beats, Rhymes, and Life. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Oh, it's good. I mean, as a non-fan, I enjoyed it, but there was a
It's
lot of
really-
beef. Like Rappaport's a huge fan, obviously, but then the tribe didn't like it. I think they sued each other. Like, it's a lot of bad shit happened. But it ended up doing the thing he wanted it to do, which is reuniting the band, and then they went on tour. So weird, right?
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks for that.
thanks, Michael
Yeah.
Rappaport.
I mean, can I kick it? Like,
Yeah.
if you don't like that song, right? Like, where have you been? Like,
I watched
you know?
the Can I Kick It video last night, and it is great. Like their videos are fucking awesome. Like they're just it's
Oh
keep going
man.
back to like lighthearted, but it's everyone's having a great time. You know, it looks like the mid to late 80s. It just kind of feels good.
It's funny you say that about. I think the music video is a lost art right now.
Oh, it's a dead art, and that breaks my heart.
It does, because I think, if I really dig deep, I think music videos are what made me fall in love with video.
I'll rant about this until the day I die. So we used to have something that was like a monoculture, and you think that was bad, but it was good in a lot of cases because you used to watch MTV, and before they started separating out shows, any hour of music would expose you to Janet Jackson, but then Metallica, but then A Tribe Called Quest, but then Aerosmith. And it was like you got exposed. Now, with what we have, it's great because it uses an algorithm to feed you what you like. But it never goes, hey, if you like this, you'll probably like soul. Under no circumstance will it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and it's it really, yes, it does give you a lot more options, a variety, and it will recommend music. But to your point, the crossover, like,
Right.
that doesn't exist anymore.
No,
Very
and you would go from
unfortunately.
like Yo MTV Raps to Headbangers Ball, and there was inevitably like you didn't leave your
Yes.
couch right away. So there was like you would
Yes.
catch the last video of the thing you were about to watch, or the first video of the thing you wanted, and then you're like, oh shit, look at this, I like this. You know?
Yes. Man, it was hard. It was hard. This question actually was really hard for me for that exact point, because like I love metal, I love
Yeah.
rap, I love country, I love hip hop. I love and I was like my three favorite bands. Like,
I know it's hard. Well, it's good because it's hard, but
yeah, for sure.
all right. Well, those are good three. I mean, I listened to exactly what we're talking about. Last night, I listened to a lot of music doing research that I wouldn't necessarily listen to under normal circumstances. And I think I'm better for it. Hey.
Indeed. I'm glad.
Okay. No, well, thank you. Here we go. Your three. The next question that's going to bare your soul to the American public are your three favorite movies. Somehow you smushed in a fourth, but I really like the first two. So I'm going to give it to you.
I had to, because I couldn't really give you a number one.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't. It was like I was even just, and I was like, he's not asking me to list them 1, 2, 3. He's saying, what are your three favorite?
Right.
And I didn't even really give you a definitive answer on the last two either.
No, you didn't. You cheated the system, which I'll allow it.
They're a work of art. So yeah, let's start with this one, Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank is in mine too. I think it might be the perfect movie. It eschews many Hollywood tropes. It's a love story between two men, but it's not like that. It's just like two friends. Right. It's not gratuitously violent. There's no explosions. It's just a great goddamn story, and it's packed full of really powerful moments, like the beer scene, where they're drinking on top of the thing, and fuck criminals, like I'm sure they've all committed horrible crimes, but you see them like being normal for 5 minutes,
right?
And that resonates. The scene where he plays the opera to everybody, and everybody in the yard just stands still. Like there's a lot of these, and then obviously Brooks was here. There's so many how do you smush in that many powerful moments?
It's work of genius, work of art. It really is. And cliche, the redemption story of in the ending, just the whole thing. I just feel like again, similar to Incubus, growing up watching cable television, is like I feel like I've watched that movie so many times, and it's
of course because it's the only thing that PBS plays, or TBS, TNT, like it's always
TNT, yeah, right. But I just feel like after seeing it so many times, it just resonates so deeply, even though I've had none of those like I guess surface level experiences of being in prison. Or
you've never been to prison in the 40s?
Right.
Get the fuck out of here.
No, yeah. But yeah, no, it was an easy answer. That was an easy answer.
Yeah, I agree. There's another thing. Oh, so I hate, just as a rule, test audiences, like screenings, but they did good in this movie because I heard that they wanted the original movie ended with him like going through the tunnel, the rain, and that's it. And they're like, well, what happened to Morgan Freeman? So they had to go back and reshoot Tim Robbins working on the boat, and Morgan Freeman walking up to him while the photo sort of camera pans out. This is the only time the audience has been right after a movie. Yes. This is the one suggestion in the history of artistry where you showed it to a group of people and they made it better.
Can you imagine if that scene didn't exist?
No, because then who would punch my soul in the balls at the end of the movie?
Oh,
like, you know what I mean?
gosh.
I need that. Like, oh my, I need to fight back tears. I looked this up, 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. Who are the 11% of animals that didn't like this?
I'll tell you who they are. They are people who cruise 5 under the speed limit in the left lane.
Mm-hmm.
The same people who don't like dogs. The same people put pinto beans in burritos.
Interesting. Do you think they're the same people that don't return the grocery cart to the little grocery cart house and just leave it in the middle of the goddamn parking? Yeah.
Same people.
Same people that order sandwiches in a Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru. The drive-thru's for coffee. If you want a sandwich, go on the goddamn thing. They take 5 minutes. What are you doing? Anyway, that's who doesn't like Shawshank Redemption.
So
all right, one more
true.
thing. I could talk about this movie forever, but Stephen King's non-horror adaptations and movies are unbelievable. You got Shawshank, you have The Green Mile, and Stand By Me. King kills it. Well,
oh man.
Yeah, right?
You just taught me something there, and that is incredible. Green Mile is another one of those movies that takes me back, but is also deservingly on anybody's top 10.
Oh, yeah.
That's another just incredible story.
Stephen King kills it when it comes to prison movies.
Yeah, I guess so.
He's 2 for 2. It's not bad. And Stand By Me is so goddamn good. I love Stand By Me.
Oh, that one's a hard one to watch.
Yeah.
So I mean, like Green Mile and Shawshank. I don't know. I feel like there's a heart pull to Stand By Me that just there's some moments in that movie that just hurt to watch.
Oh yeah, in the youth thing, like it's great. We're gonna get off on tangents, but I think watching that movie as a kid, you really feel it in a different way. My son's not generally afraid of horror movies, but he was afraid of Monster Squad, I think, because it stars kids. Like there's something about kids watching kids on screen that you feel it more. That's why E.T. was so powerful. I think for a generation.
That's interesting. Never thought about that, but that is so true.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons it's easier to watch some of the more gut-wrenching moments in Shawshank and Green Mile because you're dealing with adults.
Yeah.
Even as a kid watching them, it's like, oh, those are adults. Like they can handle that. But when it's kids, man.
Oh, it's way worse. Especially when you have kids. Like prior to having kids, I identified the kids as me. But after you have kids, you identify it as your kids. And then anyway, let's move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forrest Gump, the greatest soundtrack of all time. And I don't think it's close. That was a double album, a double CD. And it was fantastic. Also, a damn near perfect movie.
Damn near perfect. Absolutely. That's another easy one to put in my number one slot. And I was like, is it Shawshank? Is it Forrest Gump? Like, which one am I going to put? I'm like, no, I'm giving him both. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm going with both. Tom Hanks is obviously unbelievable in that movie. I don't think anybody could have ever played Forrest Gump better. The way it spans through his life and phases of the United States history as well, I think that's just beautifully done. Like so many of the characters, I feel like you just deeply, I don't want to say resonate with, but you feel their struggle and their pain and their experiences, and it still somehow leaves you at the end of the story like smiling while crying.
Yeah, it's very emotional, but it's funny. Right. In the ambition of this movie, because of the size and the scope to take on Vietnam and Nixon and AIDS and like, holy shit, man. And,
yes.
And he's got some sort of thing. He's on the spectrum, perhaps, or whatever. Like it just was like unabashedly ballsy.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. Like I said, that's one of my points. Is like it just hits on so many topics and does it so cleverly. And it's simple at the same time. Like it's not it's not hard to follow. It's like you can jump in at any moment in that movie and feel something and learn something, and connect with people who aren't like you. Like there's so many one-liners from that movie. Like I still to this day, like, if I'm sitting on a bus or if I'm sitting, somewhere and there's a seat beside me and somebody walks up, I'm like, seat's taken. And just like a smile on my face, like, come on, sit down. I'm just kidding.
So your next two movies after this one and this one were all cultural phenomenons. Forrest Gump changed the lexicon of language in some way because Run Forrest Run became a thing. The Bubba Gump shrimp, we was naming all the shrimp, that became a thing. Seats Taken. There were a lot, like, it was Bubba Gump shrimp became a goddamn restaurant chain. Like this
Right.
well, when does that happen? A movie comes out and all of a sudden restaurants pop up. It doesn't.
No, it
It's
doesn't.
a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like, I mean, is there even like what about Roadhouse? Right? You think about that. Is it popular as it was? Is there a Roadhouse chain?
Oh, and that seems to beg for a Roadhouse.
Right? And that's literally the name of the movie, right? That is, the whole movie is about this bar, but Forrest Gump, Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, right? Like this one character, this one storyline that does thread throughout the entire story in a sense. It's still like more powerful. It's beautiful.
This is one of those things too, and part of my argument about the greatness of the decade 1990 through 1999 was the monoculture when it was at its peak. Everybody had watched Forrest Gump. Everybody could quote Forrest Gump. We all had this same thing. Now media is so spread out. If you like a series, chances are not only has somebody not seen it, they probably never heard of it. But there was a beautiful point in time where we were making great art and everybody watched it. Everybody watched Seinfeld. Everybody watched Live in Color. Everybody watched Forrest Gump. It was kind of like, yeah, it brought us together in some way, I think.
It did. You're so right. And then movies are like movies are just not like that anymore. There's just so much, like the great age of the blockbuster movie is gone, really.
The blockbuster that could speak to you. Like, I don't think Forrest Gump gets made today because it's not Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, which again are all Disney. Like, you need to spend 500 million on a movie and it needs to make 2 billion for it to make any sense.
Yep.
And that, it kind of sucks.
It does. It's unfortunate. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I love the streaming era, like the accessibility of movies, but I do miss walking into Blockbuster and
so do I. I know. And then it's not there. The disappointment. Sometimes it is the excitement. Oh my God, I miss
the late fees I have had to pay.
All the late fees. I'm so much richer now. I bought a second house because the late fees I'm not paying.
Right.
All right. Your next movies, I guess, if you're gonna, I'll allow you to smush them all together. But I'm gonna assume Harry Potter means the Harry Potter series and not just the first one.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So this one's a little deeper in the reason. So first off, this was the first book series that this is the first time I ever fell in love with reading as a child. Because this was, this came out, I think, when I was in middle school. The book series did. And so it was the first I remember so vividly, like grabbing the Sorcerer's Stone in particular, and like not being able to take my eyes off that book. I was just so drawn in. I'd never been a big reader. That's just wasn't my thing, like in high school or in middle school as a child. And it was the first time I did that. So that was one of the reasons I chose this. Another reason I chose Harry Potter is because I'm adopted. And there is something really deep that I think most adopted kids go through secretly, where they're waiting on that moment Hagrid comes and saves them and takes them back to where they belong, so they have a feeling of identity.
Wow.
And this book, I actually recently watched this. My wife and kids went to Louisville to visit family, and I stayed in town because I had to work or something like that. And one night I turned on the Sorcerer's Stone. I was like, I'm gonna binge watch Harry Potter. This is gonna be cool. And I remember kind of like crying my eyes out.
Really?
As an adult, because like just really like tying myself back to those childhood feelings of like, I didn't have a bad life. Like, I don't want to sound like that, but it's not what it's about. It's about looking around and seeing other people that are like you and feeling like you fit in to this tribe, and I think that Harry's story about like growing up as a muggle and then realizing that he was something so much greater. It wasn't his story about him being the hero. That's not what connected with me. It was the story of finding out that like, I'm a wizard and there's a bunch of other wizards and like, holy shit, this is cool, and finding his place And yeah, that really resonated with me. And that's why I chose Harry Potter.
Interesting. I was so I wasn't adopted, but I was raised by my stepfather, who is my father, like I call him dad. But I think when there's something that should be there and it's not, you have sort of this hardwired abandonment, and you know that it's not personal because who's like, fuck that baby? That baby's lame as shit. You know what I mean? It's like they don't know you, but you just can't separate those things. And I
No.
had a great life too. But
Yeah.
it's always like this sort of like, it's kind of shitty, you know, especially when
Yeah.
you have kids and you're like, I could never imagine leaving this. And they left us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I remember the moment I laid eyes on my firstborn, and I'm looking at him, and I really, in a moment where I should have been just 100% focused on him, I think one of my first thoughts was like, she does love me,
Yeah.
like my biological mom, right? Like I was like, how could she not? To your point, right? Like when
Right.
you see, I was like, so then it became more complex in my head because it was like, for so long I had just been like, oh, they didn't want me, and then I realized, no, there's something way deeper here that I just didn't understand because I didn't have the lived experience to understand it.
But even when you have that, I think it's still, you can't get rid of the core thing. Like that scar will remain no matter what. Even when you take a balanced view of it, which I find fascinating. Well, in my experience, it looks like yours too.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing
100%.
about Harry Potter, so I don't, again, I think the age difference was significant. My sister was a huge Harry Potter fan, big reader as well. But I think the J.K. Rowling opening up reading for an entire generation is goddamn unbelievable. In between college semesters, I stayed with my uncle and aunt, and they had young kids, and they had Harry Potter. So I think in between my freshman and sophomore year, I read the first one. And I was like, it's fucking great. I went back to school and I told my friends, like, you're fucking dork. You read Harry Potter. Then they fucking all read it and loved it. And they're still fucking Harry Potter dorks now. It didn't like, it doesn't, this genre, like I always get made fun of because I don't like Game of Thrones. I just don't like English accents and wizards and fucking dragons and shit. But very well written books. Because just to contrast that, my wife read the 50 Shades of Grey series. So I picked one of those up. I was like, this is absolute trash. These are unbelievably well-written books. And for what she did, like she opened up great, well-written literature to children in long ass books. And there was a million of them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And the scenes that she painted, right? Like the depth, I guess, to the spaces, you just can close your eyes and imagine being in, what is it, Diagon Alley, right? Like, and all the magical things, like, oh my gosh, recently I went and did an escape room with my kids, and it was a magician's escape room, right? So, but it kind of like, it had that same vibe to it, that everything's magical. And I think also there's this feeling of like, her imagination made you feel like there were new things still to discover.
Right.
When you dove into that, when you really allowed yourself to be immersed in those books.
And this was a cultural phenomenon as well. I mean, there's theme parks now,
Right.
it's $1 billion industry. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
In a world where all we can do is rehash, stories from 60s comic books and remake shit from the 80s, for her to create this entire universe it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
No one's done it since.
No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. So yeah, that was another easy one for me, and I couldn't choose. There was no way I was going to choose. To me, it's all one movie split into different chunks for you to be able to kind of like digest it, right? Like it's like there's no way I was going to choose one of these. That would have been too difficult.
That's fair. I'll give you the series. One more thing on Harry Potter. I love that she was rejected, I believe, by 19 publishers before somebody said yes. If I was her, every day I'd call those 19 and read off my bank statement, just so they know. All right, your last one. This again, something that interesting, because you're once again younger than me, but so Star Wars, you're going the pantheon of all the Star Wars movies, the entire universe. All right.
Yes.
So when did Star Wars come into your life?
My older cousin, who's 10 years older than me, was obsessed with Star Wars. And I think like if I really dug deep, I'd say he introduced me to the series. I remember he had all the little models of the planes, all the different
Yeah.
spacecraft, and he would like tinker with them and build them and then set them up on in displays. And I just captivated right by those ships. And I was always obsessed with aviation too. So I had like another kind of angle to it in that. But similarly to Harry Potter, like the universe, the depth to the universe, and all of the different creatures. It just captivated me as a young child. And, you know, there was this as a kid. I didn't do well with horror when I was a kid, you know, and Darth Vader was scary, bro. Like, you know, that was scary. I remember specifically being just like terrified. So there's this, you know, amazing hero story and, you know, the reconnection. I mean, wow, I didn't even really put these things together necessarily until just now, but like Luke finding his father, right?
Yeah.
Like being an orphan in a sense, right? Like there was another connection I think I had there with that story of finding, even though he wasn't necessarily proud of who his father was,
You found him.
Found him. Gotcha. Gotcha. So yeah, no, what an incredible, unforgettable storyline.
I think so. It's funny you mentioned the cousin, that older cousin that had all the toys. I had an older cousin that had all the toys too, and I thought the cool toys were really cool. But I had a singular obsession with He-Man, and I was not going to let that go. So that was my, you know. And then that segued to Ninja Turtles. So Star Wars somehow just passed me by. Then in high school they came out with the other three, the trilogy, the prequels, I guess. And I listen. I don't want to step in line with everybody else's opinion, but Jar Jar Binks was like the worst character I'd ever got. That was awful. I was like, I just can't do it. I did try to watch The Mandalorian. I couldn't do that too. I don't know. It's doesn't speak to my soul. But in this case, I am wrong because the Star Wars universe is another billion-dollar entity. And I'm on the outside looking in, but what are you going to do?
Have you watched Andor?
No, not even. What is that a show?
It's a show. It's like one of the Disney spin-off shows, like Mandalorian. I would tell you that is a absolute must watch if you're a Star Wars fan. Like even if you didn't like Mandalorian and you didn't like Acolyte, you didn't like Boba Fett, like if you didn't like any of those, this is completely different. It's a story about like non-hero characters in a sense. It's a story about like blue collar people. You know, when you were watching Star Wars and you know you're following the story of Luke or you're following the story of Darth Vader and the heroes, like the people at the top echelon that have superpowers and there's something magical about them. And then you see kind of all the fill-in characters and you're like, I can't help it. I always just thought like, man, what are they like? What's their like home life? What's their like? What's their experience like? It's a story all about that.
Oh, fleshing out the B and C characters, huh?
Exactly. And there is I won't spoil it for you, but there's a monologue in like the 7th or 8th episode that made me stand up and like clap and like yeah! Like it was just like the most powerful and riveting monologue that I've heard in so long, and it just touched my soul so deeply. And it's about sacrifice, and it's about like one of the characters asked the other one. He says, "What have you sacrificed?" And then this guy goes on this rant, and at the end of it, you're like, wow. Holy shit!" Okay. Like, so yeah, watch Andor.
All right. Let me tell you, as a non-Star Wars fan, the 3 greatest things that they've given to us is number 1, I will say, for this movie poster is fucking incredible. This is a great movie poster. Tangentially, number 2, when nerds go to Comic-Con and some of them dress up like slave Princess Leia, 10 stars. That is a 10-star Comic-Con outfit. The 3rd is, have you ever seen Triumph, the insult comic dog, go to a Comic-Con and make fun of the Star Wars fans?
I haven't.
I gotta send it to you. It might be it's the most perfect piece of comedy ever produced. It is tremendous.
No, I'll definitely watch that. Yeah, send that over.
Oh my God, it's gold. Okay, we're gonna go on to your 3 favorite books. As we discussed off air, some of these are very intense, and by some of them, I mean all of them. This one, the 48 Laws of Power. Holy shit! I printed some out. Can I just read you some of the scarier ones?
Shoot.
Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Always say less than necessary. There's zero chance I'm ever going to do that. Court attention at all costs. I'm a big believer in this. You have to get attention. This is get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. I do think that's shitty advice, but that's pretty sound. Yeah, it's sound advice. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. I agree with this too. Like those people suck. Constant victims, crying about shit all the time. They're no fun to hang out with. What else?
I recently exercised that in my life. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh, you got rid of some toxic people?
A few.
Yeah, you gotta cut bait sometimes.
And it was so powerful to do that. I can't tell you how. Yes, it was hard, but like I took that to heart, and I was like, like those people are always going to bring you down, and that doesn't sound kind, but it's meaningful when you do it, and you find yourself happier.
Yeah, and this is the thing too. This plays into one of my pervasive theories about life. Now they're like, oh, the United States, you don't care about your old people. Old people is the sage, their wisdom. They're not. Just like toxic people don't get progressively better and happier. Old people, like the average person's just an idiot. The average old person is just an old idiot. So let's stop pretending that time is going to heal these people, that old people are so wise. No, they're not. Stop it. Get rid of toxic people. And if an old person sucks, an old person just sucks.
Facts.
Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. I don't like that I agree with this, but I agree with this. I like when people are a little on edge, Don't get too comfortable with me because then you're going to start being dickish.
Right. And I think, and here's kind of my theory. And I think he says this in the book. He's like, look, like some people are going to tell you that these things are manipulative and unkind and unbecoming, but the enemy being the bad guy. Right. Yeah, and that's right. It's kind of assuming you're the good guy, which is a little bit narcissistic.
We all are in our own story.
A little bit narcissistic. Right. But like, if you do believe that you're benevolent, right, it's better that you have these powers than get these powers used against you.
100%. Yesterday's episode, one of the movies was A Few Good Men. And I quoted the line during the episode with this too. And he goes, during the you can't handle the truth thing, he says, you rise and sleep under the blanket of freedom I provide and then question the means by which I provide it. And the larger scope is we are the goddamn Marines. We are protecting you with guns from bad people. So therefore we don't play by the rules of everybody else. It's accepting of the circumstance and adjusting to the context. That's what this kind of is. It's like, we don't want to believe that we live in a world where this is applicable, but we do.
Yes. 100%. One of my favorite ones, I don't know if you have this on your list, but play a sucker to catch a sucker seems dumber.
Right here, number 21. Yeah.
Seems dumber than your mark. Yep.
Do not commit to anyone. This is why I don't love my kids that much. I love these two, 27 and 28. Play on people's needs to believe, to create a cult-like following. I mean, look at Trump. I mean, I'm no fan, but this is what he does. Some people understand inherently a cult-like following will benefit you. And then number 28, enter action with boldness. I like that a lot. No one's bold. Everyone's boring. Bold is better, I think.
Boring is safe. Doesn't get you in trouble.
No. And I think we're pack animals. So we're herds. If the lion's running after us, the one that gets separated is the one that gets killed. And that was true for 300,000 years. Now we're in an era where standing out is the thing that's going to benefit you, but we're hardwired to be in a pack because a pack is safe.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Make your accomplishments seem effortless. Does this seem effortless, this show?
It does. Oh yeah. You're good at making it seem effortless. 100%. That's no bullshit.
And this is, you just did number 32, which is play to people's fantasies. So you're a big believer. You're very good at this. These rules, they're worth reading. Stir up waters to catch fish. I think this plays into the be bold thing. You got to stand out. You got to do something interesting.
You do. You have to. It's so important. But I think people are afraid of that.
Of course,
for a lot of reasons, because there are consequences. Because if you're not careful about how you're bold, you might reveal too much about yourself, which ultimately will give your enemies material.
Plus, I think life is scary enough in a lot of cases, just like the day-to-day, raising kids, going to work, fucking traffic, eating right, trying to work out, trying not to drink every goddamn night to dull the pain of existence. And then you go, you know what else? These rules. Be bold. And like, fucking just leave me alone. 5 minutes. Stop yelling at me.
Yes. What about, did you like law 15 and so 15 and 16, at 15 being crush your enemy totally,
You know
right?
what? If I think I need more enemies to run. I don't know who I would crush. I think you know what I mean?
So if you don't have an enemy, you need to make some.
I guess
Yeah,
so.
you
Yeah.
need to make some for sure. Because I think here's what, and these two books, 1 and 2, they taught me this is like, don't tell people what you're for, tell people what you're against, right?
Mm.
It's almost like it identifies you by deduction or reduction rather than an addition. Like instead of trying to build yourself up, you're taking you're doing a relief in a
Interesting.
sense. And I think that sometimes tells more about you than when you tell people what you're for,
Yeah.
because when you tell people, it's a lot easier or it's a lot harder to stand on the thing that you hate. Like I'm totally against that than to be like, oh yeah, I really like being a kind person and like I want everybody to be able to have their own thoughts and feelings and like I feel like that's kind of easy, right?
Yeah.
But to like when you tell people what you're against, that creates enemies
Yeah, you
right
know
there.
what else? Sometimes it creates friends because I found that outside of like
It does.
liking the same thing, what's really satisfying to the soul is hating the same thing. Further that,
Yes.
like if I find somebody that hates the same stuff and also likes mushrooms, say, I'm like, oh my God, yes, I think our souls are intertwined.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
hitting things together. Oh, it feels so good.
Yes. 100%.
Um, disdain things you can't have, ignoring them is the best revenge. This goes against my general Nietzschean philosophy because his critique of Christianity is that they convince the poor, for example, that they're going to get heaven. Just be happy being poor because eventually, it's harder for a rich guy to go through the eye of a needle than it or a camel, whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? But like falling in love with your circumstances kind of feels like this. I don't necessarily agree. I think envy is a good thing. So like, I don't want to disdain things I can't have. I just fucking want them. Can I work to want them or
Yeah.
work to get them? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I also, yes. And I think there's a duality to that where it's like happiness is not a destination. It's a state of being.
Yes.
Right. So like, yeah, yes, you should not fall in love with your circumstances if they are total shit.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that like finding happiness in small things in your day to day will ultimately propel you to better things.
Yeah.
But I think that men that don't believe they have anything will continue to have nothing, and men that believe that they have everything will continue to be blessed with more.
Yeah.
I
I
do
think
believe that.
we're binary creatures. We want to believe A or B, black or white, and I think the truth is always shades of gray. I think there's truth on both sides of this for whatever individual believes in it.
Completely agree.
Number 46, I have a big problem with never appear too perfect. What am I to do then? What am I? I just got to start acting as if I'm not? That seems, that would be disingenuous. And I don't think anybody wants that. Okay, we're running out of time. We got to go into your next book. Same author, though. Same
author.
general feeling. The Concise 33 Strategies of War. This one, I had a little bit of harder time wrapping my head around, only because, war, it's a little intense. But I do like avoid the snare of groupthink. I think groupthink in general is an awful, awful thing.
Right. No, 100%. This book's incredible. It was the second Robert Greene book that I read.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was so passionate about 48 Laws of Power. I was like, okay, this one has like on Audible, it has like 4.9 stars. Like how can I, and it just uses so many historical stories and anecdotes that like, not only does it teach you something about life, it does it through real stories. And I'm a big history buff anyways. Like I would say history buff, like I like to hear stories about history. Like if you asked me to repeat a million of them, I would be able to probably tell you one, but like it really does just do such a good job of like putting the laws of power into really contextual stories.
Applicable settings. Like I like transform your war into a crusade is so true because dying in war sucks, but dying for a cause somehow seems a little bit better. So like there are what blows my mind is you can write down those psychological rules and then have people go out and kill other people for them, which is so like, don't you know they're using a playbook? But hey, it fucking works.
What about trade space for time?
Trade space for time is a good one. I like hit them where it hurts and defeat them in detail. I think is very applicable. Negotiate
Yes.
while advancing is a very interesting insight.
Yes.
Occupy the moral high ground is something I always try to do. I love the moral high ground. It makes me feel so, I don't know, like a pretentious asshole, which I am. So it's like where I belong. Moral high ground. I love it.
Yeah. This is another one if you've not read or listened to it, which it'll be honestly this might be hard to read, but listening to it like while I run is
Yeah,
perfect. It's
I can
such
see that.
perfect, and it's long, so you're not like always having to like go pick something else out on the long run. So it's just like 36 hours of
Yeah, we
listening.
should
So
point out that you run for 36 hours, so you need a hefty book. You can't be
yeah.
listening to this pop psychology bullshit. A couple more before we go, though. Give your rivals enough rope to hang themselves. That's how I parent, by the way. I give my kids enough rope, and then I hang them. And then, again, sow uncertainty and panic through acts of terror. This is like one of those. Yeah, I guess that works. It's odd advice, though.
Oh, there is one in here, and that might be that one, but one of them is basically like, um, make your enemy feel like you're crazy. Like messing with you is not worth it. They're like, nah, we're not gonna screw with that guy. Like he's not, and that's kind of how I parent, right? Like I'm not the one that's like, I try not to be threatening. I'm like, I'm instant to like nuclear mode one
Yeah.
time, right? And then when I give them that side eye, they're like look at each other, they're like, nah, we better not mess with that. Like that's a
Yeah,
bad
look, I
idea.
mean, this is enough. This is just like what we're about to say here. It's just like terrorism works, but your kid should be a little afraid of you, just a
Yeah.
little bit. They shouldn't cower in the corner when you walk in the room, but a healthy fear. My father never hit me, but I was terrified of the man. I don't know what he did. It was magical.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway,
100%.
yeah. Okay. One more book, and then I do want to get to your meal because it's a delight of American bistroness. Never Split the Difference. This was you do a lot of negotiating.
I feel like we all do, don't you? Like
Mm.
every one of your interactions is a negotiation in a sense in life, and like whether it's a relationship with your spouse or with your
Mm.
kids or at work trying to get a promotion or
Right.
with a colleague trying to make the right move for the business. Like there's just so many negotiations in life, and I feel like it's a lot easier when you look at it that way, and you're just kind of honest about that being the case. And Never Split the Difference is really good, and I think it also helps, like this book in particular helps you connect with other people, like be an active listener, like mirror the other person's thoughts and feelings back to them, and they will continue to elaborate more. Like it's just a book about communication in general from the perspective of negotiation, recognizing that life is a big negotiation.
Hmm. Mirroring is a big thing that I think makes sense. But then I was thinking too, like the value of silence. Sometimes I use that, but my wife uses it all the time. And I think maybe she read this book because what ends up happening is I just punch myself out and then I run out of energy for the fight. So
That is that
I
is
think
the
she's
strategy.
I think she's splitting the differences in with me, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, and the point of this book is like if you split like if you a compromise
Hmm.
is everybody losing.
That's interesting.
Nobody gets what they want really if you compromise, right? The trick, and I think that the Art of War, right? The Art of
Yeah.
War is a book that's about not fighting
Yeah.
and getting what you want anyways.
Best case scenario. Now, speaking of what you want, this is the next question is death row meal. I made a little collage.
Oh boy.
Hold on. It's coming. Let me pull them both up.
Your visuals are impeccable.
Oh, thank you. I'll just say this, and I feel compelled to say this every time somebody includes this general idea of food. No one ever says that American food is like up there with like, okay, you ask people their favorite cuisine. Inevitably, they'll go like Italian or French, even though we fucking eats French food. American bistro is we crush it. Like big hunks of meat cooked over fire with some sort of buttery sauce, potatoes, like grilled vegetables. We did the seafood tower. This is us.
It's true. It's true.
See, he wants to have a beer while listening to it.
Hey, crack one open, brother. Crack one open. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Listen, that's okay. Here we go. This is the first. This is okay. Here we go. We're gonna walk through your death row meal. Potato croquettes. Is that what this was?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so this is essentially. I don't even think I've really had one of these. This is mashed potatoes, breaded and deep fried.
Yep.
Oh my God! Why isn't this on the menu of every Applebee's in every county in every state in the United States?
So I did the ones that I had most recently, because this is the first time I've ever had them. Was in Las Vegas at a fancy restaurant, and they were like in a cast iron little skillet, and they were like not fried, but they were mashed potato balls that were like put into like a mixture of butter and cheese and like covered with. Bro, it was. They are the most delightful thing I think I've ever eaten in my life.
It makes all the sense in the world, because if you look at Americans, we fry fucking Oreos and Snickers. And why does I know we fry potatoes, but now we're mashing them, putting butter and salt, and then breading them and fry. Oh my God.
Oh,
How isn't this more prevalent? Okay.
I'm getting hungry thinking about this.
I know. Well, listen, it ain't over yet. Then you go to candied bacon, which is again so you already have bacon, which is damn near perfect. Now you're putting fucking sugar on top, and you've licked the sun. I don't know. This is what I like about your meal, is it keeps elevating things.
I'm glad you think so. I thought really hard about this one. This is one of my hard ones. I was like, man, what would my death row meal really be?
Before we move on, though, she's right. This is one of my friends. We play trivia together. We go to this place called the Bull Run, and their tater tots, I was thinking about this, are a lot like these. They're tater tots in name alone, because I always tell people it's like mashed potatoes with like a crunchy shit on the outside. Yeah, I mean, they just need to be more prevalent. So fried mashed potatoes, candied bacon, and this goes along with my theory. Macaroni and cheese is now a base. Now you have to add shit to it. So some people had bacon or, buffalo chicken, but you're going truffles because you're fancy.
It's just so good. And like, I think like it's a basic thing. Like, mac and cheese, there is a big variety of quality in mac and cheese. I mean, there's mac and cheese, and then there's like fancy mac and cheese with like,
right. Which is, it's not, I lament sometimes the lack of white culture. Right. Like nothing really comes out of Caucasia, but sometimes we get really wrapped up in certain things. IPAs, I can't help but like them. I just fucking do. Like, I wish I didn't. Shit on top of macaroni and cheese, I can really get on board with,
Absolutely.
We were like, macaroni and cheese is not enough. We have to add stuff. Truffles. This is another thing that white people fell in love with. Truffle oil, truffles. I was like, you know what? I wish I hated it. I don't. I think it's perfect.
I wish I could give you the right descriptor for this side, but it's just so delicious.
Yeah.
Right. Like that is really what it comes down to. Is it's simple. It's like mac and cheese is childlike, but the truffles make it like a refined adult
version. You feel better about eating macaroni and cheese because it's an $800 ingredient on top.
100%.
You didn't specify the asparagus preparation, but I just went with grilled because that's fucking delightful, right? Plus, once you're executed, your pea's going to smell funny. So we have that going for us.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I think the reason I chose asparagus is I was like, I have to have one vegetable in my meal.
Yeah, you got to balance it out.
And because I chose my main courses the way I did, like I think asparagus is the perfect pair to a good steak. Right?
I've had just about everybody has included some sort of red meat protein on their death row meal. No one has ever gone double steak. So you're going with the filet mignon and a bone-in ribeye, which is, oh boy, yeah, that's a lot of meat. But you're going soft and buttery, and you're going sort of a fatty steak. That's a nice combination, I think.
I probably would have had it dry. If I would have thought again, I probably would have had it like a dry aged bone-in ribeye too. Like go extra meaty, like that extra beefy flavor, like almost like a dirty sock. It's so beefy and meaty, Like I love steak. I don't know. Like I know I'm not supposed to love red meat the way I do, but man, there is just nothing that makes me happier than eating a good steak.
I wish this is another thing. I wish I didn't love it as much as I do, but I'm glad you said dry aged. There's a steakhouse relatively close to me, and the thing I get is the dry aged bone-in sirloin with blue cheese, compound butter, and a fried egg. And that is like licking God, I think. Right? The sauces. I'm so glad we're putting sauces on steaks still.
Yes. And blue cheese is such a perfect pair to a good steak. Like there's no doubt.
I'm going through a blue cheese phase in my life. I'm putting that shit on everything. I think blue. I don't know what happened to me. It really it just
Salads, burgers,
eggs and put that shit on
steaks.
eggs.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
the blue cheese hot sauce egg combination is what is happening? Anyway, then you've gone apple pie, which I think this is another thing. My big defensive about American cuisine: we crush dessert, and you picked the two that you cannot fuck with us with. Apple pie and ice cream. Well, you didn't say, but necessarily, but you did ice cream and apple pie, and we are so goddamn good at those two things.
Yes. I mean, what's better than like a well done homemade apple pie? Like I can eat the whole damn pie myself. Like I almost when it's like I'm having to share that with people, I'm like, no, like that's isn't that whole thing mine? Like am I supposed to eat
And when
that
it's
myself?
in the warm cold combination of apple pie with ice cream is I don't magical. It's almost proof that there's a God. It
Yes.
almost gets me there, but not quite.
Yes. And that's why I chose sweet cream, marble slab, sweet cream ice cream as the pair because it's not vanilla.
No.
Right? Like, don't get me wrong, vanilla's great with apple pie. I'm not trying to hate on that, but it's basic. Like, I wanted to go same reason I chose truffle mac and cheese. It's like sweet cream one ups vanilla
Oh
to
yeah.
me.
The only application to me for vanilla ice cream is the pairing with apple pie. Otherwise, put a bunch of shit in that stuff because there's so many magical stuff that you can smush. But I
Yes.
think with apple, it would just get too confusing. Apple needs plain vanilla, but that's the only application, unless you're a child. Children are allowed to like just plain vanilla. Nobody else.
Right.
Everybody else
Have you ever
needs shit
had
in their ice cream.
apple pie ice cream?
No, but should I? It
If
almost
you get
seems
the
like
chance.
okay. But I'll give it a shot. I don't want okay. And then you're finishing the meal with a couple of. Is this it, Highland?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I've
Highland
never had
Gaelic
one.
ale.
What's special about the this Gaelic, this Irish stuff?
That's a really good question. I think it's the first beer that ever made me like beer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like it tastes really good. Like it's not hoppy, it's more of an ale, it's that ale like kind
It's got
of
that
like
red color, which generally
you
means it's not going to be hoppy, right?
European
Yeah.
almost like biscuity,
Oh
like
yeah.
kind of right, like bready flavor to it. Highland is a brewing company in Asheville, North Carolina, which you see Asheville's first beer. And yeah, I mean, it's a beer that I can sit down and I can drink 12 of them if I want. I mean, I don't drink
Yeah.
anymore, but if I
If you're about to
did,
be put to death, it's time to have a couple beers, I think.
no brainer for me. I wouldn't have to think twice about this. I'd be like, Highland Gaelic Ale, give me 12, please.
Yeah. When you find that perfect thing, the perfect version of a thing that you love, it's magical.
It really,
I was at my brother-in-law's house and we're both bourbon drinkers and he was like, yeah, go get something. So I went, he's got a great bourbon cabinet, but I picked out Baker 7, which is like $70 and it is perfect. It's like there are a lot of great bourbons out there, but when you find that one that you really fall in love with and you have that thing after a little while, like you haven't drank in a while, that first Gaelic ale, now granted, you're about to be put to death by the state, but that is going to be so fucking good.
oh, I can taste it right now. It's not good for my sobriety, but whew,
That's overrated. I'll have a few for you. All right. And to finish off, the last question, your favorite quote. I believe this is the one that is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
yeah. This I got to attribute this one to an old business partner and college buddy that is no longer a buddy or a business partner. And I think like his grandfather or something used to say this to him, and I'll never ever forget this because I do think if you recognize, and this going back to getting rid of toxic people and off the 48 laws of power, right?
Yeah.
When you recognize somebody does one thing that gets on your nerves, it's likely they're going to continue to get on your nerves and it's not going to be a good look for you, right? And so that's first thing I'll say about that quote. The second thing is like be excellent in everything you do, right? Like don't I wrote a post a while ago and did a video about perfectionism and perfection is the enemy of progress, but I think like you don't necessarily want to you want to make progress but be perfect in a sense in the effort that you're applying. Like give a perfect effort. It's your best effort. Don't half-ass.
Yeah.
I guess is really what it comes down to. And I feel like so many people go through this such short life without trying to create masterpiece once. Something that just represents who you are as an individual. Like every time it's just like, oh, just going through the motions. Like this is a checkbox that I feel like I need to check off, but it's not like they're Mona Lisa. It's not their, they don't have that. I don't care what, you don't have to be an artist, but like whatever it is, like be intentional.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what this quote really means to me is about intentionality.
It makes sense.
in
I like what you said too about no one having, well, not no one, but few people having a masterpiece in life. But it's hard putting yourself out there. Like there's a million things in life that are hard, and then to add this extra thing that you try to make perfect. It's hard to fail in public because that's the way a lot of people view masterpieces. You got to get it out there and expose yourself. So that's difficult. Having said that, more people should, because we need more masterpieces. And we did make Jerome thirsty before the beer talk. Just I want to point that out with your meal. So.
He's gonna go get a beer.
You may be sober, but what you're doing is suggesting other people drink subliminally. So you're doing God's work in many ways.
Do it for me. Think about me when you're doing it.
I know I will. Yeah. People, it's tough. Life is tough.
It can be tough, but I think also it's like there is beauty in the going back to what we said earlier, right? There's beauty in the struggle, right? You can find those small things. That happiness is a practice. It's not a destination, right? Life is tough, but I think that if it wasn't tough, it would suck.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
honestly,
here's the thing too. 2 points. One, there is beauty. There's also bourbon, which helps life. But humans think that happiness is like some sort of plateau. Happiness is like this thing. Like you look at the extreme, heaven, right? People think in heaven, we're just going to sit around in clouds. Sitting around in leisure doesn't do anything for us if we haven't earned it psychologically.
100%.
So we're going to get sick of heaven real quick. What humans like is achieving something after a little bit of struggle. And then you go back down again, and then you try again, and then you reach it. And that's like the fleeting nature of happiness. We just have to accept, because that's what it is. We can't sustain ecstasy all the time unless you're on ecstasy. And even if you are, eventually that's, suicide Sundays. So there's no way to perfect this thing.
It's funny you say that. I think only 50% of America is in love with the story of the rich kid who got richer.
Yeah.
Right now.
That's not
the rest of us like a good hero story, right?
Like the rise and fall and the rise again. That's what we're into. And then, if we had the attention span for it, we'd like the rise and the fall and the rise and fall again. But we don't. We move on to the next thing. Yeah.
How interesting is a story where your dad gives you an inheritance and you turn it into more? Like, ooh.
I mean, if that was my story, I'd love it. But fuck off everybody else who has that.
Nah, to hell with that, man. To hell with that. Like, give me the hero. Give me the hero story. Give me something to overcome. Like that is the essence of life.
And Star Wars and Harry Potter. So the episode has come full circle. We should probably get out of here. We've gone 7 minutes over. Do me a favor, though. Stick around so we can chat in the green room.
Yep.
I'm going to say goodbye to the live stream. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I thought the episode was delightful. I'll see you, later whenever we have one. I don't know when the next one's scheduled. I'm not a professional. Bye, America.